Hello there. Greetings, everyone. This is, and we are, the Thinking Scrubs. I'm your host, Ron, together with my partners in crime, Raymond
Hi everyone.
and Ramon.
Hello.
And joining us as a Force Ghost, Ian. Hi. So he's not here, so we can do anything with Ian. Yeah.
Bakit
No
ganun?
I,
offense, Ian.
I
We hope
think
you are here. We wish you
uh,
were here.
I think meron siyang ano ngayon medical appointment. I think he has a scheduled digital exam.
What kind of exam?
What kind or what kind? Did you say what kind?
No, that's not what I said. I said what kind. I leave it
Ah,
for the
I thought I heard you say butt kind. Anyway, speaking of butts, a bit of shout out to Lulo Lampar. So he put out a very impressive performance during your game. I still couldn't forget the finals game where Lulo fired his Ars cannon from hell. No? How many did he dispatch? Guri and
he just took out Guri.
Guri only, but he did also a lot of damage to the Zelos pilot. It's so
Oh,
hard to remember, no, because it was what 2 weeks ago.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
just 2 weeks
somewhere up.
ago. So we have a lot, but aren't you guys excited for the upcoming games? We have a lot coming in August.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what a few days from now, August 3. We have the tournament in
Gaming
Gaming
Live.
Library.
Yeah, props to
So
Ellie for setting that up.
yep.
Mhm.
So if you've watched our previous episode where we talked about X-Wing in the Philippines, so Gaming Live is one of the places where you can get your X-Wing stuff and play those games, be it a competitive tournament or just having fun, casual games. No? So again, a few days from now, August 3, we have a tournament at Gaming Live. Any other
Eh,
shoutouts, Raymond?
Mm, well, shout out to the people who liked our YouTube videos on the past few uploads. We've been receiving a lot of great feedback, and hopefully, we receive more great feedback in the future as we try to improve. And oh, yes, our raffle is still ongoing. So um, if you're not yet a subscriber, please subscribe, like, and comment on our video to be part of the raffle. And if you're already a subscriber, just like and comment to be part of the raffle. We have some
Yeah.
great prizes, alt art cards, possible tokens, and dial covers. You can check out our previous episode for more details on that.
And we're growing, ah. Ramon, ilan na yung subscribers natin ngayon?
Secret.
Don't want to spoil it, you know. The
Oh, but we're
raffle's not yet
definitely
over.
growing. It's so exciting to watch, no?
Yeah.
So our subscribers increasing bit by bit. Okay, but enough of the shoutouts. We have a very interesting episode ahead of us. We're going to talk about player etiquette. Okay, so on to the show.
Roger, Roger.
Ano yun?
Droid. Uh,
oh, ayun.
Wow.
I was
or do you like that one? Ano mas gusto mo?
I was
Grab.
expecting it to be longer, pero it was strangely apt for the moment.
Okay, so let's
Roger, Roger. Okay, so thank you again. No, we're improving. This is our only our second episode where we have sound effects. No? So we're definitely improving. So on to our topic, player etiquette. What is player etiquette, Ramon?
Oh, uh,
what do you mean? What's player etiquette to you, Ramon?
to me, is it like a personal definition, or do you want me to try to go for like a general definition?
When you hear the words player etiquette, what picture pops into your mind?
Uh, the player etiquette is basically the general set of behaviors and attitudes that players of the game bring to the table and also out of the table when they engage in playing X-Wing, the fast-paced miniature game from FFG.
Again, Ramon with a very good definition.
Parang pinaghandaan ah.
Yes, I know. But how do you do it? Every time, every time. Last episode as well.
Oh,
Okay.
sige nga. Can you repeat it? Can you repeat it, Ramon?
Again, I can't repeat it anymore. I lost half of it when I reached a fast-paced miniature game.
Parang every
Go,
time,
Ron,
parang
Ron, Ron.
parang
Your turn. Your
sinasabihan si Ramon eh, no? Ng grammar Nazi. Anyway,
Ron.
etiquette,
Your turn.
when you say etiquette, parang ano eh, no? It brings to mind how you set the table, how you behave, table manners, di ba? So, pero it boils down on, I mean, player experience. How do you make the game enjoyable? How not to be an ass when playing X-Wing? Kasi it could get competitive at times, right? Because basically X-Wing is a game between two players fighting against each other. So, how do we do it in the civilized way? Using lightsabers instead of blasters. No? So that and at the end of the game, kahit sino man sa inyong dalawa yung nanalo or natalo, you both end up having a good experience. And player etiquette has a big, significant impact on that outcome. How about you, Raymond? What is player etiquette?
I guess similar to what you said, but for me, player etiquette is really also maintaining your cool, and hopefully that there's like a expected way of treating your fellow players with respect and dignity, so that you're not, secretly cursing each other because, oh, because he did this and he did that, and suddenly you're feeling bad the rest of the day because of that. Ultimately, I guess it's really just treating the game as a positive experience, as you said.
Ano ba yung impact pagka we do not follow or we do not observe proper player etiquette, so to speak?
Let me see. Well, I think I've had an experience before wherein there was bad player etiquette on my part. I won't name names, of course. It could have been unintentional on the player's part. But of course, there are times wherein sometimes uh, your opponent forgets to activate certain abilities, and then later on tries to retroactively activate them, and then or tries to sneak in some changes to the effects that you didn't know about. So it's really hard sometimes that you sometimes after the game you're thinking, should I? Is it my responsibility to be tracking these effects of his, right? And did that affect how you could have won the game?
And siyempre, minsan, you can't help then but feel guilty. Di ba? I mean, pagka hindi ko ginawa yon, if hindi ko siya, like, for example, your opponent wants to do backsies and you don't allow him and it cost him the game. So sometimes, hindi mo rin maisip, kasalanan ko ba? Na kaya siya natalo kasi nalimutan niya yun or whatever. Pero ano naman, di ba? Parang it's not on you. So each player has the responsibility to maintain the game state, to play the game properly, di ba? But I could imagine gaano kahaba yung game. 1 hour, 15 minutes in a tournament. Usually naman, of course, pinag-uusapan natin on a tournament setting. Usually, 3 rounds? Or sometimes, way back then when we have the nationals, 7 rounds. So people get tired. So people would tend to miss things, di ba?
uh,
So parang
or distracted.
inevitable. Yeah. So, inevitable na minsan nangyayari talaga yung mga ganon. So, what do you do, no? Pagka na-experience mo yung ganun?
Exactly. How about you, Roman? Have you had any previous experiences with this?
Um, I was going to dive into my first experience in player etiquette actually after we've discussed a few examples maybe because I was gonna say that but I think I can jump into it. I first learned about player etiquette actually when I started playing regularly at GNG. Uh, I learned about it from PJ, Tim, Romy, playing against them. They'd remind me about my own responsibilities as a player. For example, making sure that I know my list, I know my opponent's list, and yun nga, yun like what Ron said, ensuring how to say this, a positive experience overall in general, but still keeping that competitive spirit alive, not necessarily just like what Ron said, when for example a game state change happens and it's missed, no, not a game state, an effect could have been triggered but it's missed, and then an opponent says na if they can take it back, you do have the right to either say it's all right or to say that it's you're not gonna allow it because your opponent missed it. So some of those cases, but I guess on a more general sense first before I dive deeper into that, for me in terms of player etiquette, yeah, there's for me the personal experience is more about when do you get annoyed or when do you catch yourself unconsciously being annoyed, or especially sometimes when you play 2 3 straight games, even if it's just casual, just losing consistently is not, losing is not fun, right?
Definitely, yeah.
So
Nobody likes to lose.
yeah, and sometimes you get losses that are not even highly your fault. What if variance swung low all the time on your end, right? It's not necessarily an enjoyable game. But part of growing as a player, at least in my personal perspective, is learning to understand, like, learning to understand what is something you can control and something that you can't control, and if it's something that you can control, how to deal with that properly. It's just basically being mature about it, like even like with anything in life.
All right.
So you just bring that maturity, hopefully, to the table.
Maturity, no? And you touched about you mentioned Ramon, 'di ba, na bad trip eh. Siyempre, bad trip matalo, pero kung natalo ka na nga, naasar ka pa, di mas lalong bad trip. So,
Oo.
negative play experience on your part. So, that's the effect on the individual player. But imagine if common na nangyayari yan. What could be the impact on the community? Di ba? So,
Yeah, if a lot of people don't have good etiquette, or para encourage bad behaviors in non-safe spaces, I believe it's always detrimental because new players would always have a hard time getting into the.
yeah. I mean, who would want to play a game where yung mga players ay mga a-hole, di ba?
Mm.
So, ngayon, kung walang gustong sumali sa inyo na new players, kayo-kayo lang naglalaro, tapos mga hindi pa magaganda ang ugali pag minsan, di ba? So, it could get stale, and I mean, tayo rin yung magsasuffer kasi hindi lalago yung game, hindi lalago yung community. So, eventually, we will find ourselves with no one to play with, and then the game dies,
Mm-hmm.
di ba? So, it's really up to us up to the community as a whole and to every individual to ensure that we follow naman yung maayos na na player etiquette, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
for the health of the game. If we want to continue playing this game that we love.
Oh,
Okay.
just since this section is about sharing a specific scenario, one of my favorite scenarios is always when there is a contestation of is something in range or not, or if something is in arc, and it's really too close to call. It's a tight situation, especially if it's a critical moment. And personally, the way I've experienced and learned how to deal with this is that if a situation that's too close to call always comes up, if it's a tournament, always call a TO or a marshal to do the med.
Mm,
Hindi pwedeng, it can't be either of you players. You
mm,
can't decide together on it because it's too critical. Someone else has to step in.
yep. And what do you say about that, Raymond?
That's definitely true, but there are sometimes some scenarios I think that I've encountered that, of course, even not even the TO can contribute to. Uh, for
That's
I
true.
mean, for example, it's really, I guess one of my previous pet peeves with player etiquette was how some players would try to rush you into playing your moves faster, and of course you want to take your time in thinking, but you're also being pressured into making decisions as well.
Mm,
Al- Although I understand sometimes people have a time constraint in mind because we are playing a strict time limited game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sometimes it does mess with me in a way, and sometimes, of course, you wish you had all the time in the world, but you don't. So I guess that's just like one of my pet peeve things, and I don't think a judge would
Would
be
help.
able to help in that scenario, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, it appears na malawak, no? Malawak yung player etiquette na topic. Pero let's try to parse it, no? So, kanina nabanggit ni Ramon about rules, about game rules, game states, etc. So, may player etiquette na applicable in that situation. And now, you, Raymond, you're talking about the behavior itself of the player. No? So, meron ding player etiquette din dyan. And there's another subtopic that I can think of. Yung pyesa, di ba? Yung plastic chips, yung cards, yung dice, yung cardboard, no? There's also etiquette in handling that. Now let's take each big chunk, one chunk at a time. So para organize tayo sa discussion natin. So I suppose let's discuss first yung pinakamadali, yung muna, yung sa mga pyesa. So yung mga chips, yung mga dials. Ako personally, i-share ko lang. Ang sarap mag-roll ng dice, di ba?
Mm-hmm.
So, ako, parang I ha- over the years, I've developed this philosophy na feeling ko mas maraming roll yung dice, mas maganda yung result niya. So, kaya minsan hindi ko namamalayan ang tendency ko pagka nag-roll ako ng dice, so nilalagyan ko talaga siya ng spin. Ngayon pag tama niya pag tama niya sa mat, hindi gugulong na siya. Marami siyang roll, kaso ang problema minsan nababangga yung chips, 'di ba? Na namamali na sa posisyon. O kaya minsan siguro yung dun sa cardboard pag tinamaan ng dice nagkakaroon ng dent. So, naisip ko, oy, parang hindi yata maganda yon on my part. So, hindi ko napapansin before, pero somebody brought it to my attention. So, oo nga, nakakagulo nga yun nung game state. And at the worst, baka mamaya yung dice ko may matamaan pa na ship, masira, di ba? And we know how valuable our ships are. So, I try to control myself. So, kung magro-roll ako ng dice, I make sure na dun sa wala namang masyadong tatamaan na ships. No? So, how about you? Ano yung mga experience nyo about doon sa mga game pieces, game stuff, and etiquette, player etiquette revolving those?
Generally, I think in tournaments, I don't think we've had a lot of players who had to proxy stuff, so I guess that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, range rulers. Well, I've never encountered. I mean, we always assume that people's materials are, even though they're not the official ones, like the range rulers and stuff, that they're um, accurate, right? So,
Mm.
so hopefully, I mean,
Oh,
I don't want to
just
assume that some of them might be off or something like that.
to point that out, actually, it's great that you brought that up. The official cardboard ones actually have a little give in terms of like the lengths of the range rulers. There are some that are shorter because I remember Janelle's cardboard range ruler is actually a little bit shorter than other cardboard range rulers.
Oh wow, production error.
Yeah, production error.
Ah,
And those cardboard, minsan, di ba, pagka, hindi ba nakakaasar pagka natutupi or nagkakaroon ng crease or yung cards itself, di ba, nagkakaroon ng dent. Minsan kasi we have the habit of pointing at say, the asteroid using the range 1 ruler.
Mm-hmm.
So, nagkakaroon ng mark. So, ako personally, I don't mind. Pero some of us might. No?
Mhm.
So, let's keep that in mind. So, iwasan natin na ma-damage yung mga play game components. No?
Yeah, I guess for me, for components, not on the competitive side, but on what Ron is saying, more on the just being generally respectful of your opponents and your own equipment. Just think about it when you're treating someone else's equipment uh, materials and components, think about it as you're treating it as if they're your own.
Mm.
Because if you want to take care of equipment, equipment is hard to go by. Asteroids, for example, like the old ones are hard to come by unless you're buying old packs. So it's not easy to usually replace stuff. Even damaged decks are hard to come by. Um, and just think about how you would feel if your own stuff were damaged, or someone basically um, doesn't show any kind of respect to your own stuff, right?
And most often naman sa atin, parang we do it inadvertently and unconsciously because, force of habit, di ba? So siguro let's just be conscious of, let's be more considerate of others in terms of taking care of the game components. No?
Mm-hmm. Well,
How
but
about,
I
oh,
sorry.
go ahead, Ramon.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the question related to Raymond's statements about in the competitive side of components. Do you have any experience on that? Like that you'd want to share?
Components. Fortunately, wala. I
Uh,
ako kasi parang I assume that my opponents would bring only those components that are allowed in the game. And ano naman, so far naman wala naman ako na-encounter na nagdala ng illegal. How
mhm.
about you, Ramon?
Well, for me is I use T70 X-Wing, so I actually have components that are not necessarily essential to the game, which are the S-Foils token. This was
Mm.
actually a discussion before about what should be followed when it comes to S-Foil uh, game state.
Mhm.
So technically, the S-Foils is a game state, but switching to that game state is a card effect by flipping the card itself. So I also use tokens to remind myself what the S-Foil state is, which I sometimes miss because it takes a while to still remember because 1.0 blues basically.
Yep.
Uh,
So, ang problema kasi doon, okay, you have the
mm,
X-Wing token, right?
mm-mm,
The close or open wings
S-Foil, yeah.
configuration. And at the same time, you have the card, the configuration card. So there might come an instance where
There's
magkaiba
different.
yung pinapakita nila.
Yeah. So on my end, I guess it's my responsibility to one a practice understanding how my components are flipped. That's one. Number
Mm.
two, it's also my responsibility to inform my opponent what we should reference if there becomes a conflict in the
Yep.
game state further down the road. And para I accept it na if I do miss it, then I'll just accept the initial statement that I said. I stand by it. Like if I say, I usually say, we follow the card. The tokens are there to remind me of the game state. I flip them as well, but I have to flip the card. And if I forget to flip it, but it's in the same round, but I state it because what one of the things that helps me do it is that when I flip the tokens, usually by the time I'm also stating I'm opening my S falls. I state it out loud para my opponent can hear it. If I
Mm.
need to flip it again, I ask my opponent. I stated it. Can I flip it now? Kasi yun naman we were working on the assumption. If they don't allow me, or it's a weird moment, then I say no, it's okay. I'm not gonna flip it anymore. But if
Mm.
they do allow me, then at least I had the moment to ask, right? Because I think being able to ask your opponent is always a good thing, but it doesn't give you the right to pressure your opponent into something.
Mhm. What do you think, Raymond?
Well, actually, one thing I'd like to bring out here in our slideshow here is the actual documentation from FFG
Mm-hmm.
in terms of tournament regulations. So for I think in that scenario, I think that would fall under missed opportunities, right,
Yes,
Ramon?
definitely would
Okay,
fall.
okay. Oh, wait. Just sorry to cut you off. So are we done with the components etiquette? Okay, so we're now
Yeah.
moving on into the game rules etiquette. No? But maybe before we with that game rules. How about yung pakalat-kalat na templates?
Oh,
Should is
I
that part of etiquette or well,
well,
minsan
some
pagka
players
close
don't
yung game.
like it. Yeah, I
Oh,
understand. Pero
oh.
but sometimes, for example, I've played with other players who are also messy with their templates. I'm messy with my templates.
Ako rin eh.
I try to keep it clear, but sometimes it just happens. And
Yep.
when that happens, we just just try to remember to like move aside the templates. But personally, on my end, if I'm not messy at that moment and my opponent is, I just remind them if it's for example obscuring an important area. But if it's not really in the way, it's not really too close to the current engagement area, I just let it out because at least it's a more relaxed atmosphere. We can focus on what's happening rather than the rest of the play area.
In
That's my
a competitive setting, so just acknowledging the gorilla in the room. Siguro yung risk is baka you might be suspected of using that range 5 ruler that's lying in the mat, on the mat, no? You might be suspected of, baka inaano mo na yan, ginagamit mo na yan as reference, di ba? Although you're not
Oh.
doing it naman in reality. You're just sloppy with your maneuver templates. So, I suppose, well, pag casual games, non-competitive games, di ba? Okay lang. Pero let's be mindful in a competitive setting, di ba? That's part of the manners, no? So keep your stuff out
of the mat.
the of the mat, no?
Yep,
So
yep.
keep them arranged neatly in one stack at one side of the mat. All right.
Right.
So I
Right.
guess I think we've kicked that dead horse enough. So let's move on to player etiquette involving the game
Mr.
itself,
Yep.
game rules, missed opportunities.
Yep.
Yep.
So actually, FFG here gives a very well, it's not that specific, but it's not general. I guess it's just like a specific a guideline, I guess, in the sense that on how players should act in the first place. So they said that are expected to act in a respectful manner, and if they have a dispute and cannot resolve it themselves, they must call a judge. I think you mentioned this, Ramon. It have to always call for a judge to resolve it.
Mhm.
And any unsupporting conduct is they try to define it here what counts as unsupporting conducts or unsupport. Like lack of courtesy or respect, cheating, etc. Collusion, of course, that's bad thing as well. And if in any case this occurs, the person may be removed from the tournament if this happens.
Fortunately, hindi pa nangyayari sa atin yan.
Yes,
Yeah,
hope.
we haven't had any serious breaches of unsporting conduct.
Yes.
Speaking of, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, again, just brushing up on the official
Uh,
documentation here.
yeah,
The
minsan,
the mark.
minsan kasi ang problem, di ba? Like, I suppose it's because of culture. Sometimes it's hard for us to call the judge.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of calling the judge, for example, I always tell Val na well, part of a lot of players in the X-Wing and usually in miniature games are guys. So sometimes for Val, it's Val is my girlfriend, by the way. She also plays X-Wing. Um, she's at the start when we were playing 1.0, she always had a hard time asking for help. The good thing about it is that players she's played with usually help her out, and it's great. Like she's played with you, Ron. She's played. I think believe she's played with you too, Raymond. She's played with the people at GNG, the people in tournaments, and most of the time people are friendly. But sometimes I ask her like she tell me about a game, and then there'll be games wherein they just resolve it on the table. Like your question of like is it just in arc or parang yeah sure let's just decide it on our own. I tell her when that comes out and you're at a tournament, right? You're playing a little bit more competitively, um, and then this is a critical moment. If something's pushing you, someone is pushing you to make a decision. Don't let that happen. Call a judge. That's why for me it's always been that if you're unsure, if no one can make a final decision, call a judge. If a judge can't make a final decision, probably a dice or a coin toss will. Basta it can't be players who the players who decide for me. It always has to be an external factor. Like there was my game with James Leo Nam, JL Nam,
Mm.
and during the Banta Brawl, there was this moment when he did the sloop, and then there was a possibility that he exited the board by millimeters. When that happened, automatically I stood up and we called Adri and Mikey.
To
Because
witness.
yeah, because that's not a decision I am willing to say. I'm not going to say he's out. I don't want to say it because I don't want to rob my opponent an opportunity to enjoy the game, even if it's a competition.
Mm.
Yes,
So,
that's good practice,
call
definitely.
the judge, di ba? And
Mm.
it's okay to call the judge. If you, it doesn't mean that when you're calling the judge, it doesn't mean that you're accusing your opponent of anything. Di ba?
Mm.
Ganda nga yun eh, you don't have to decide. Because of course, you have your side, your opponent has his own side, and obviously, you want your side to prevail. So better call the judge. It's okay to call the judge. Okay? And yung mini-mention kanina, sometimes even the judge cannot definitively decide on
Mhm.
some situations. Fortunately, the game itself is elegant enough to provide a solution for those cases.
For
For
most
most
cases.
cases. Yeah,
Oh, di ba? Pagka,
Most
di ba,
cases.
pagka merong, hindi, pagka, I think it's in the rules eh. It's in the basic rules. Pagka
Oh,
merong hindi ma-decide,
uh-uh.
ano yung solution?
You call a marshal.
No. Okay, call the marshal. Oh, pagka the marshal, if the marshal couldn't decide, meron pa rin
um,
siyang solution.
what's the final solution, Ron?
Roll the dice.
Yes. Oh, yun nga. Oh, roll the dice
Diba?
or flip the coin. Yeah.
Let the dice decide.
Yes.
And it's in the rules. You're not cheating anyone. And sometimes stuff happens and people forget or minsan magulo lang talaga yung interaction. There is a remedy. Diba?
Mm.
Ask the dice to judge.
Yes.
All right. So where are we? So game stuff. Usually in game stuff, it's missed opportunities, right? And what does it say in the rules? Pagka if there's a missed opportunity, no? Ano ba yung missed opportunity na sinasabi in the first place?
To define it, basically, it's when a player has an opportunity to use a game effect but forgets about it and then tries to, or at least wishes to, retroactively use that effect. Well, actually, yun din yung ginamit dun sa tournament document. But idea is, for example, if, like taking my earlier example of X-Wing S-Foils, uh, the wording of X-Wing S-Foils is that before you reveal your dial, you decide to flip your S-Foils, whether it's open or closed. So that means when you revealed it, the game state for the S-Foil card is locked in. So, in that specific case, because what if suddenly you put the ship at the end of the template and then you realize, oh no, I can actually execute a barrel roll in my T-70. That is not particularly sporting, considering that the intent of flipping the S-foils is part of the challenge of flying the X-Wing T-70. And it would be unfair to your opponent because the fact is you're paying points for a ship that's being restricted in terms of movement with the T-70 based on its S-foil state.
Pero yung S-foils ba, is it a game state or a missed opportunity?
The S-foil itself, at least from my understanding, it's just not hard. This is not a hard rule because in itself, the missed opportunity rule has a lot of space for interpretation. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna over how would I say this um read too much
Mm.
into the tournament rules in some parts because some of them have too much space for interpretation. But from my understanding, at least the way when I practice with the S foils is that in itself, declaring and flipping the card games, card flipping the card is a game effect. When you flip it, you gain the action bar changes.
Mm.
After that, when you move, for me, it's already part of the game state.
Oh, okay. So that's different if you move na. So
Yeah.
pero other similar examples that occur before you reveal the dial. Advanced sensors, tama ba? Does it?
Advanced sensors is when you reveal your dial before you move, you can
Ah,
do
when you reveal. So that's when you reveal.
Mm.
So okay, it's not before you reveal.
Yeah. There are some
Yung
cards na ganun.
yung
Na
game state kasi parang ang pagkakaintindi ko like for example, nag-roll ka na ng dice. So tas meron ng dice result. Hindi mo pwedeng i-unroll yung ano, 'di ba? I-unroll yung dice.
in specific cases, pagka for example, mali yung dice na binato. For example, if
Oh,
you're supposed to be only throwing two
oh,
dice through
pag
three.
kulang, so merong remedy sa rules for that.
Yeah.
Pero essentially, pagka nag-roll ka na ng dice to make an attack, nandun ka na. You're attacking na. You're in the engagement phase na.
Yeah, which is also why it's important to wait for your opponent to throw their dice if they're attacking and then you're defending. And then
Kasi
wait for them to modify their dice.
Kasi I'm thinking, going back to the S-foils example, like, okay, you're supposed to choose which, is it either open or close before you reveal your dial. Pero like, for example, na-reveal mo yung dial, tapos nalimutan mo to close or open, di ba? Can it be reversed? Nag-move na ba yung game state?
That's actually where I'm going to this section, this
Oh,
sentence here, where that player cannot retroactively use it without the consent of their opponent.
correct.
It's also
So,
why I practice the whole. I state that I'm opening my S foils, I flip the
ah,
token, and then I flip my card.
all right. So, speaking of, di ba, speaking of player experience, of course, you want to maximize the use of your ships. And
Mm.
that includes opening or closing your X-Wings S-foils at will. So, if pagka minsan, talagang pagka na-miss mo yung mga ganun, like for example, it's the fourth round of the tournament. And there's also a remedy, di ba? Of course, you can decide to just be it, let it be, nagkamali eh. Pero you can also ask your opponent if you can turn it back. Now, the thing is, yung mahirap na part doon, parang your opponent is not actually obliged to agree to you, right?
Yes.
Pero you can ask. You can
Mhm.
ask naman. So, malay mo, he will allow it. Pero don't feel bad if he doesn't.
Yes.
Diba?
Definitely. Set your expectation.
Oo, kasi parang it's your fault din naman eh, kaya nakalimot ka eh. Pero, yeah, just ask. There's no harm in trying. Ako personally, my
Sorry.
rule is like, for example, pagka hindi naman nationals or regionals yung laro natin, di ba? So, okay lang naman. Well, pero not in general. Syempre, case-to-case basis. Pero may cases na we allow it. May cases din na hindi.
Mhm.
Pero the other guy should not feel bad. Uh, and also you should not feel bad if you do not allow your opponent to take backsies, di ba? So
Mhm.
kasi at the end of the day, each of us has the responsibility to play the game properly, essentially.
Oh, Ron, to add, since na-bring up yung game state, just to point, game state is tokens like shield tokens, force charges. These are, like it says in the missed opportunity section, um, how do you say this? Players are responsible for maintaining that.
Yep.
So, but it's
for
also
example,
important to understand where it has to be followed.
mm,
Like if damage was taken and then shield tokens were forgotten to be removed, I don't think it would be easy to say it was a missed opportunity to flip the shield tokens.
oh. So super obvious naman yan, di ba? Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin, tapos na yung opportunity to flip the shield token eh. Sorry
Yeah.
na lang. Di ba?
Yeah,
Now,
just sorry,
on
go
the
ahead.
other side of the coin, yung force tokens naman, di ba? Minsan,
Mm.
nalilimutan nating i-face up yung nagre-regenerate na force tokens.
Yep.
That's actually not a missed opportunity. It's a game state, di ba? You
Mm-mm.
can ask your opponent to, oops, nalimutan kong i-face up itong force token. Ang problema lang kasi noon minsan, pagka like multiple force tokens ka, say tatlo, tapos dalawa naka-face down.
Mm-mm.
So hindi mo alam kung na-face up ko na ba yung isa or nalimutan ko. No? Yun yung mga mahirap na part. Well, if you can remember, if you can retrace your step. Do you know what I mean? Do you get what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say?
If it's more than one, usually it's always
Yeah. So like kung okay, kung yung tatlong force tokens ni Mace Windu lahat naka-flip down, naka-red, well, obvious, dapat isa doon naka-face up. Right?
Yep.
Kasi every turn merong nag-face up. Pero kung ano na, nagpo-proceed na yung game, may naka-flip na isa, tapos sasabihin mo na, oh, parang nalimutan ko yata yung isa na i-face up. So, yun, medyo, admittedly, medyo mahirap ng patunayan yun. Unless you can trace back with your opponent again, working with your opponent. You can
Mm-mm.
trace, if you can trace back, and then hopefully, yeah, you can determine kung na-miss out mo nga or hindi.
Yeah, and then they agree with you that sure you can revert it.
Yep.
Diba? Yep. Yun din yung fight. That's the final pupuntahan din nun eh. Your opponent says, sure, go ahead. And honestly for me, usually there's no harm in letting your opponent do that unless, usually in casual games, ganyan.
Uh,
In some parts of the tournament, non-critical rounds, kunwari.
or unless fina-fly niya si Darth Maul on an infiltrator. No, yun, si Darth Maul, kailangan kompleto lahat ng force nun. Yan. Raymond, how are you?
Uh, I'm still here. You guys got into it very intensely.
All right, where are we? Where are we? So we've discussed about game states.
Yeah, so we've had a
so-
very lengthy discussion about it. So basically, I think, I think our listeners and viewers generally have an idea of what the things we should do. So I
pero
guess,
wait, pero
yeah.
wait, meron pa tayong namimiss na isa. So we've talked about etiquette surrounding game components, etiquette surrounding the game itself. How about the behaviors naman ng mga players?
Well, I guess in that sense, you just go back to the guidelines of FFG, wherein you have to act in a respectable manner in a tournament. So I guess that's the basic thing that you have to do. You don't
Ako-
have to be super, you don't have to be the friendliest person in the world. I can understand that if you're not like that, but I guess you just have to be respectful of the game and your opponent, right?
Ako, I can share something. Alam niyo
Okay.
naman ako, medyo madaldal ako pag minsan, di ba? So, lalo na pagka in-game. Well, at
Okay.
least dati. Kasi, minsan, parang tendency ko, like, during planning phase, you're setting up the dials, or after kong tumira, tinatanong ko yung opponent, kumusta ka na? Anong ganyan. So, hindi ko, di ba, admittedly at first, hindi ko na-realize na I'm distracting my enemy, my opponent. Di ba? So, okay, during planning phase or when you're not moving, so ang learning ko, when you're not moving, when it's your opponent's turn to move, to plan, to whatever, di ba? Keep yourself from distracting him. Just stay quiet. Although, in more competitive arenas or levels, di ba? You can some could argue that it's part of the game. It's part of gamemanship, di ba? Pero okay lang naman na like minsan kasi nagta-trash talk tayo, di ba? Or we're trying to predict where the opponent will move, di ba? In order, that's part of psych war, di ba? And it's also part of what makes the game so rich. But I guess like everything, 'di ba? Meron ding limit, 'di ba? So parang we should avoid doing it to the point na hindi na makapag-isip ng maayos yung kalaban mo or masyado nang nade-delay yung game or masyado nang maingay, 'di ba? So I suppose that's okay lang naman mag-taunt, mag-trash talk, 'di ba? Yung war part of the game. But let's have limits din, kumbaga. Let's be mindful pa rin.
Yeah, let's see if our opponents are comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. So
Okay,
where
so
where do we go from here?
let's just so I guess these are our main takeaways for this episode. Hopefully, that our audience members will take away is that number one, generally we should be keeping an open mind. Number two, staying positive. This should this is a game after all. And lastly, it's just to have fun.
Yeah.
Sim- Simple, right?
Mhm.
So, talk to your opponent, diba? It's okay, absolutely okay to call a judge, diba? And
Mhm.
don't feel bad if you have to say no. Sometimes you really have to say no. Like when your opponent is trying to ask you if he can take back his missed opportunity, diba? And also, don't be afraid to ask. Kasi minsan, we make honest mistakes, diba?
Mhm.
Pero let's not feel bad if the other guy doesn't allow you to take backsies.
Um, can I try a summarizing statement, like some kind of like golden rule?
All right.
Go ahead.
Uh, for me, the basic golden rule for good etiquette in X-wing and which includes sportsmanship and behaviors is if you're gonna do something or your opponent is doing something, um, know when to call out when the action is something that you're not having when both of you are not having fun because of and either of you are not having fun. For example, if you do something that that your opponent is not having fun with, like distracting him or damaging his pieces, or basically something he finds uncomfortable, it's probably best to be prudent
Smelling
and
bad.
not do that action, more or less. Or if your opponent in some way does something that makes you uncomfortable, don't be afraid to speak out. Don't be afraid to call a judge, like I said. So, if an action is something that will cause a negative experience for one of either player or both players, it's probably not. It's probably something that you should reconsider doing.
Mm. And nalimutan natin part of etiquette is personal hygiene.
Oh,
Ever had
meron
that
ba
problem
dito?
though?
May,
So wala pa namang nagtatrap ng electroproton body odor bomb. So wala namang ganun sa
Uh,
atin, unfortunately. So pero in other games like in Magic, 'di ba? Parang not to drop names or whatever, pero it happens.
oh, but I mean, yeah, it's because the audience for Magic right now locally is really big. It's bound. There's bound to be some people who come in, but it's not the general group of players. I mean, I think Magic players are a majority of them are normal people. There's just a couple who, you know, seek
Yep,
through.
yep.
Yep.
We're not generalizing. So
Mm-hmm.
Ramon gave a good tip, no? Uh, how about you, Raymond? Kasi parang we've been delving about what not to do. So, bago tayo mag-close, let's at least leave with something, at least one to do. Good thing to do. Good practice.
I guess generally my main, the one if I had to had one takeaway for this is that um, I guess would be the number one point on our slide, which is keep an open mind because generally the people in the community are good people. I'd like to believe also.
Yep,
So
I agree.
nobody's here intentionally out to win by, we're all here to have fun. So before we give in to our natural instincts of thinking negatively, let's try keep an open mind and see how we can resolve this in a civilized manner.
Mm-hmm.
With lightsabers.
Yes, or Lupin Chewy.
Mm-hmm.
Yun. And ako, one good practice that I tell myself I should do, no? So that during the game, parang I practice declare like what Ramon said. I practice declaring my moves so that the opponent would know exactly what I'm doing. So like I'm even my moves, no? So two straight, two back, what action I'm performing, what token am I flipping up or down, etc., etc. So because I think communications is really is also a big part of the game, di ba?
Mm-hmm.
So it's more enjoyable pagka nagkakaintindihan kayo. Kung naiintindihan mo kung ano yung nangyayari sa game, di ba? So
Definitely, yeah.
so that's it for me. Kasi minsan like for example, pagka may players din na masyadong mabilis, ako kasi medyo slow ako eh. Hindi ako maka-keep up. Ano nang nangyayari? Ano lang ginagawa niya? 'Di ba? So, minsan Yun na nga eh. So, paano mo malalaro yung game properly kung hindi mo alam yung nangyayari? So, ako, I try to be that good opponent. So, I
Mhm.
declare, I make it clear my intentions and what I try to do. Having said that, I'm only human. I make lots of mistakes.
We all
So,
do, but we try our best.
and I hope hindi nyo isipin na we're holier than thou. We all
We're
make
not.
mistakes.
Yeah, we make mistakes too.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. What a great episode.
Yeah, we hope
So,
you all took away something from this episode. Hopefully.
all right. So for the betterment of the community, di ba? For X-Wing community, Philippines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So meron ka bang closing sound effect? That lack of faith. Well, hopefully we'll have more faith. We'll hopefully we'll have more faith with our
If yun yung sasabihin mo pagka ano, if someone points at you and says, "You're cheating." So, I find your
oh
face disturbing.
Sorry.
tapos
Just still getting used to that.
I find your lack of faith disturbing. All right. So that's it for our main episode. So before we close, any announcements?
So yeah, Ellie's event next week at Gaming Live August 3. Hopefully everyone who's available can join, support that tournament as well.
Are
And
you
also,
joining, Raymond?
yeah, of course.
Are
And of
you
course we have.
going to
Mhm.
observe proper player etiquette?
Yes, I will. I'll
Okay.
announce all my moves like you.
How about you,
I'm
Ramon?
entering the room.
Yes,
I'm
senpai
putting
mo.
down my bag.
Uh,
I'm opening my zipper. I'm
quality
closing
shots.
my zipper.
There, grab.
Oy, di ko pa rin nakikita yung nakita nyo last episode na meron palang may bukas ang zipper. Tama ba? Dun sa presentation?
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go back
Alright.
and
So,
watch it.
meron pala tayong Easter egg.
Easter eggs.
Easter eggs. Speaking of
Bounty for
Easter
anyone
eggs,
who identifies the person with the open zipper.
yeah, and speaking of open zipper, Ian, join ka na next time para hindi ka ma-open zipper. Anyway, so any other announcements before we say goodbye? So League, so August 3, Gaming Live. Uh, please, we have a live raffle. Please, if you haven't yet, please click subscribe, like, share, and then comment to join the raffle. No, and then watch out soon for our X-Wing League Season 3 announcements. All right, that's it for the Thinking Scrubs episode 6. I'm Ron.
I'm Raymond.
Camera on.
Goodbye.
And bye.